Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about red dot sights on pistols. Primarily look at the Burris FastFire III as compared to a Trijicon RMR. Alright, so I'm going to start off kind of just talking about red dots on pistols in general. I carry a red dot sight on my everyday carry gun. It's a Glock 19, pretty tricked out, so I get asked questions about this a fair amount. How do I feel about it? Is it worth the price? What do I think about different MOA dots, all that stuff. So I'll get into that real quick first, and then we'll talk about the Burris FastFire III and how it compares to the RMR. This Burris was provided to me from Optics Planet. I have a coupon code still going on for them over there, 10% off. So if you want to pick this up, or you want to pick up an RMR, you want to pick up anything, my code is good for, I'm not sure, I think for like another week. I think it's till the 16th, so depending on when I put out this video. So I'll put the information for that in the description below, and maybe I'll put it in the video somewhere here. It's last line 10, gets you 10% off your entire order at Optics Planet. So buy everything you need, go do it. All right, so I'm gonna be talking, kind of starting off with just some general information, thoughts on red dots on pistols. And all these guns I'm gonna be handling, they've all been cleared ahead of time, so don't worry about that, safety Nazis. So red dots on a pistol, what are the advantages of them? One of the primary advantages is that you're able to focus on your threat, on your target, rather than focusing on your front sight for accurate shots. That's probably the biggest pro for the advantage of red dot sights over iron sights. Also, if you have aging eyes, or what they help for me with particularly is I have kind of eye dominance issues. So I started shooting a long time ago before I really knew anything. And I closed my left eye and aimed. I'm right-handed, so I shot like that. And I was just kind of trained that way. Then when I realized that, you're supposed to keep both eyes open and all that stuff, I tried and realized I was left eye dominant, right-handed shooter, left eye dominant. I didn't feel like relearning how to shoot left-handed, so I kind of tried to train my eye to be more right eye dominant. And it is. I'm kind of like a little more right eye dominant now than I am over, years of practice and trying to focus on that. But what red dots help with is people with eye dominance issues. It's really hard for me to shoot both eyes open with iron sights, but with a red dot, very simple. So eye dominance issues, not talked about much, but is a huge help for that. The other thing is, accuracy at distance, or just accuracy in general. Your brain isn't having to do as many things. Find the front sight, focus on it, line it up, see how that is in relationship to the target, and then pull the trigger. All that stuff, if you're a good shooter, you do it pretty easily. But with a red dot, it's just stupid simple. You just put the dot on the target. You're looking at the target, the dot's on the target, pull the trigger, and you're good to go. So it makes shooting a lot easier and a lot more precise. Some of the cons is barrier to entry. It costs more money to equip your handgun with a red dot. So that's kind of why I'm talking about the Burris FastFire, and here it's on the Glock MOS platform. So as far as barrier to entry, this is one of the cheapest ways to get into it. A Glock MOS pistol is only like $50 more than a regular standard Glock pistol. The Burris FastFire is low 200s as opposed to something like an RMR, which is like $550, $600. So this package is kind of lowers the barrier to entry to get into the red dot sight game. And this is a great option. I'll be getting into more of the specifics about the Burris here in a little bit. So some other pros are, it aids in low light shooting for obvious reasons. Having this big thing on the top of your slide also helps with one-handed manipulations or two-handed manipulations. It's just, when you grab your slide to rack it, it's just a whole nother like handle on top. You can rack it off your belt, whatever you need to do. It helps with those kind of manipulations. Also helps for shooting suppressed. So, if you have a suppressor or something, yeah, you can get suppressor height sights, and those are great, but having the red dot on top of it with the suppressor makes shooting suppressors just effortless, just like you're shooting a regular gun. So this height over bore, I don't know, is that what it's called, the suppressors? The top of the suppressor being high over the sight, height over sights maybe, is kind of null with a red dot. It helps out with shooting suppressed as well. So if you're into shooting suppressed, obviously red dot's a great choice too. And one of the biggest cons is that people talk about it being slower. It's slower, I'm faster with my irons. And that's kind of a personal thing. It varies person to person to person. I don't really find myself much slower with a red dot than I do with iron sights. And that might be because my approach to red dots is I still present the gun as if I'm using iron sights. You know, my presentation, my muscle memory, all that stuff is intact from when I was shooting just primarily with iron sights. And you still have iron sights on your gun. So when you're pulling it up, if you're having trouble searching for the dot, that's kind of a common thing. As you're hunting for the dot. You know, this is a tripod. There's nobody back here. So you pull it up, and then you kind of find yourself trying to find the dot. Where's the dot? And you waste all this time trying to hunt for the dot, when really if you just present your gun like it's traditional iron sights, the dot will just appear in your vision. So if you have the good muscle memory of presenting your firearm with your iron sights, your dot will just be there natively. So I find a lot of people, when they shoot with red dot, it's like they forget how to shoot a gun altogether, and they're focused solely on the dot. And when you're focused solely on the dot, you're going to hunt for it. You're going to try and find it. You're going to say, where is the dot? But don't. Just shoot the gun like you always have shot it. Shoot it with the muscle memory that you've developed, hopefully through dry fire and live fire practice, and the dot will just be there. So hunting for the dot's not really an issue if you take your mind off of the dot and just try and point the gun. So muscle memory comes into play a lot there. So how you're holding your gun, if you can reproduce your grip all the time, you can reproduce your presentation, your dot will just be there. So I think with practice, it's not any slower with iron sights. So you get all of the pros, you don't really get any of the cons with practice. You know, you throw a red dot on your sight out the gate, it's gonna be a little slower because you're gonna just try and hunt for that dot. But after a while, it won't be any slower. So those are just my personal thoughts. Some people may disagree with me or argue with me, and that's fine. And that's basically it. So that kind of covers my thoughts on pistol red dot sights. So if you have more questions about that in the comments below, just comment. I'll try and get around to them. And then let's just get into kind of the Burris FastFire III review. All right, so let's get into it. Again, all these guns were cleared beforehand. This is the Burris FastFire III. And some of the things I like about it just right off the bat are how thin it is. So it is exactly the width of the Glock slide, like exactly the width. So this is mounted on a Glock MOS, Glock 19 MOS. So the MOS, what is it? I think it stands for Modular Optic System. So you get these different plates here. So for the different ones, you know, you have your RMR plate, your Delta Point, and then one of these fits, the number 1 plate fits the Burris FastFire. Installation on this is actually a breeze. So I looked around on the internet a lot, and people were talking about how you need different screws, how much of a pain in the butt it is, and maybe they changed it. So they ship them with these little washers that mine didn't come with, actually. So I contacted Burris. They're real good on the phone. They're actually in Colorado, I guess, their headquarters. And they got me a little package of these washers in the mail that same day. So I got them a couple days later. So those washers you need. So you take off the standard plate. Plate comes off. You take those 2 screws that you used in the plate, put them aside because you're going to be using those 2 screws in here. And then you mount the plate onto the slide with the included small screws, and then you mount this onto the plate with those washers and the original screws that you took off. Bingo bango, done. Very easy, took a couple minutes. This is running some, I don't even remember, blacked out suppressor height sights. So here it is, about the same width almost exactly as the Glock slide, which is great. You have something like an RMR. I think you can tell it's wider than the slide, so it kind of sticks out wider than the slide. And I don't really love that about the RMR. It's not, it's not really in practice. It's not really a big issue, but I just, something about me doesn't really like it. So I like this is completely flush. Another thing you'll notice is that the RMR is just beefier. It's just a beefier, more durable sight, period. So this is kind of the gold standard of durability in a red dot sight. And part of that comes at the design and how thick the metal housing is. You see the Burris FastFire is very thin. The advantage of that in the FastFire is that it kind of has a bigger window. So the window and how big it is, how easy it is to look through, kind of goes to the FastFire in this one. The RMR is a little smaller, and actually even the color. So the RMR casts more of a tint, more of kind of like a bluish tint than the FastFire does. And I feel like the RMR has a little more distortion around the edges than the FastFire. So you get more durability and more battery life actually out of the RMR. But this is kind of a, to me, it's just a better glass to look through. So I prefer looking through this. I like it a lot more. So durability and everything else. So yeah, so what you'll see also is that the butt of this is a little taller than the RMR. And in addition to that, with the Glock MOS mounting plate, you have this whole package sitting a little bit higher than a just directly slide milled RMR mount here. So with the slide milled RMR, you can see that the irons actually co-witness. With the FastFire, you'll see that the suppressor sight irons don't really co-witness. The top of the irons is about flush with the top of this. Now you can still make pretty effective hits. I've shot this thing without the dot on to see how accurate I could be, and surprisingly accurate. So yeah, you don't get an actual true co-witness, but it is very close. This white line in the back, if you're wondering, is part of the Burris. Has a little white line in the back, which I kind of like, but I kind of don't like too. So the RMR has nothing in the back, as you can see. So as far as windage and elevation adjustability is on the sides here. And uses this really small, dinky little screw head. So you'll need a really small flat head to change that. So I don't see that as a huge disadvantage, just something to note if you're going out, bring a small flat head. You have the RMR has much bigger, so pretty much any kind of flat head, maybe a coin even, and a shell casing can adjust these. But those are kind of, you set it and forget it, and you're good to go. So I don't see that as a huge hit for the FastFire. The other thing you'll notice is that the battery compartment is on the top here. So that means you don't have to take your mount off to change the batteries. Now obviously an RMR has crazy good battery life. We're talking years, 3 or 4 years of constant on. But when you do need to change it, you need to take the RMR off of the slide. I kind of am leery about doing that too much just because this is threaded directly into the slide, and if it strips or something, you're kind of hosed. So I try not to take this thing off as much as possible. So that's one thing that's good about the FastFire is you change the battery through the top here. Having said that, this thing is kind of a pain to get back in the threads right. Yeah, that's it. So as far as operation goes, kind of the main thing, and I don't really see people talking about this much, but this has an auto shut-off feature that I don't think you can turn off. I should probably reach out to Burris to confirm that, but it automatically turns off after 8 hours of use. So for a defensive handgun, that might not be the best option. I mean, you have backup irons, and most of your defensive shootings, honestly, will probably be in like point shooting range, but you want your optic to kind of always stay on. With my carry gun, I have my optic always on and never turn it off. So the auto off feature, it's kind of a big issue with this. I wish you could disable that. But turning it on is pretty easy. You just hit this button on the side, and the first time you hit it, it goes into auto brightness mode. So kind of, I think there's an ambient light sensor. This might be the ambient light sensor right here. Gets the ambient light and adjusts the brightness accordingly. Then you can cycle through brightness levels, goes to brightest after that, then dims down, dims down, dims down until it's off, and then back to auto. So that's kind of nice and easy and intuitive. The RMR is brighter, less bright. To turn it off, you hold both of these together at the same time. So kind of some pros and cons to the features. This is the 3 MOA version. My RMRs, both of them are the, I think 6.5 MOA, RMO7, so 6.5 MOA, so a bigger dot. So thoughts on dot size for a pistol? I would say for a defensive pistol, go for the bigger dot. It's gonna be a little faster, it's gonna be a little brighter, it's gonna be a little easier to pick up. The smaller dot, if this is kind of more of a range toy, something you want to impress your friends with, will allow you to shoot at range much easier. So, and that's kind of One of the advantages of a red dot is it's easy to shoot, 100 yards, 200 yards targets with a red dot. It's kind of almost cheating. So the smaller MOA dot you have on that, the easier you'll be able to shoot at distance. So, if this is kind of, you're putting it on somewhat of a ranged toy or something like that, or anything you're going to be shooting at distance, maybe you would want to go for the smaller MOA dot. However, if it's a defensive use handgun, I'd probably opt for the bigger dot. The FastFire has an 8 MOA dot on their bigger version, so it's a little bigger than 6.5. I probably would prefer the 6.5, but if I was going with the FastFire defensive gun, I'd probably go for the 8 MOA dot. So real quick about the Glock MOS. So the good thing is you get these mounting plates. So if you're kind of in the market and thinking about getting a red dot and wanting to try it out, and you're thinking about getting a Glock, obviously, if you already have a Glock, maybe milling the slide would be your best option, but then you're kind of stuck. If you mill it for an RMR, you're shooting an RMR, period. The MOS allows you to change out sights. If you say, oh, maybe I want the Delta Point, or I have a friend that'll loan me a Delta Point, another friend that'll loan me an RMR, and another friend that'll loan me a FastFire, and I want to try them all out. MOS is a great way to go for that. And then the main disadvantage, obviously, is just that it kind of raises the height over bore of the optics. So in practical terms, that doesn't really mean much for a pistol, except for the co-witnessing of your irons. Now, the RMR will be a little shorter back here, so you'll be able to get a little bit of a co-witness with the MOS system than you would with the FastFire. But having said that, if you mill the slide for a FastFire, that'll get down low, and then your sights will co-witness also for that. So MOS, has some pros and cons. It's kind of a lower barrier at entry to get into pistol-mounted optics. They have, Smith & Wesson has their version. A couple other manufacturers out there have kind of from the factory versions where you can try red dots out. So yeah, Burris FastFire III, great sight. So far, I really like it. Trijicon, obviously another amazing company made in America. Burris FastFire is, I believe they're kind of headquartered in America maybe, but the site itself is not made in America. But their warranty is a bomb-proof, lifetime, no questions asked warranty. So if you have problems with this, don't worry about it. You're covered. Just send it in and they'll take care of you. So really for, a budget pistol optic, this thing is great. I love it. If it was as durable and bomb-proof and had the battery life of an RMR, I would probably take it over the RMR. But, it's not as durable, so you have some trade-offs. But looking through it, actually using the sight is really great. So I think that's it. That kind of concludes this tabletop review. This is already going to be a pretty long video. But if you have specific questions, feel free to ask them. One other thing to note is that the MOS rear sight is further back than the standard Glock slide. So just a thing to note when choosing sights for the MOS, you might not be able to get the standard ones that kind of extend back past this little dovetail too far, because you're already pretty much at the end here. So it's just a random thing to note, separate from the FastFire, just the Glock MOS rear sight that nobody really talks about, but just to note. All right, and as always, thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. If you did, like it below, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And don't forget, the Optics Planet coupon code if you want to pick this up, or an RMR, or anything else, 10% off your entire order. Information below. All right, take care.